few days ago, I compared the Tab S8 Ultra to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And now Samsung is pitching the Tab S8 Plus as a powerful Android alternative to the 11-inch M1 iPad Pro. They cost about the same, at least in the US, so $799 for the iPad Pro and $899 for the Tab S8 Plus. And remember that you do get a free S Pen when you buy the S8 Plus, so let's take a closer look. Now, the question we're trying to answer is when you take into account the different types of things that you do with your tablet. So watching videos, surfing the web, working with various productivity apps, and then playing games, which one of these is the better choice for you? Let's start out by talking about the display. We'll quickly cover the specs, and then we'll talk about how both work for different types of tasks. The Tab S8 Plus has a beautiful 12.4-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1752 by 2800, a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, 120 Hz refresh rate, and 266 pixels per inch. The iPad Pro has a smaller 11-inch Liquid Retina display with a resolution of 1668 by 2388, an aspect ratio of 10 by 7, 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate, and an almost identical pixel density of 256 pixels per inch. As far as the actual image quality, I'm going to give the edge to the Tab S8 Plus. The display is bright, it's super colorful, and because it's an AMOLED display, it has super dark blacks, which create a really nice contrast. The aspect ratio of 16 by 10 is also a bonus when you're watching video because it's much closer to the actual aspect ratio of the content, so you're getting a much larger image and smaller black bars on the top and the bottom. In terms of taking notes or using these tablets in portrait mode, there isn't really a significant difference. They're about the same width, but you can see more on the Tab S8 without having to scroll because it's taller. Now, one of the advantages of the iPad Pro is that it has an adaptive refresh rate of up to 120 Hz. On the Tab S8 Plus, you can choose between 120 Hz and 60 Hz, but then the tablet remains in that mode until you change it. The iPad Pro has Apple's ProMotion, which detects what type of content is being displayed, and then it can lower the resolution when you're doing things like reading so that you can save on battery life. And then when you're scrolling or navigating around the home screen or your settings, then it can increase the rate up to 120 Hz and give you a more responsive and fluid user experience. Now, ultimately, both displays are very good, so you can't really go wrong here. But if I'm picking a display to watch content on, that would be the Tab S8 Plus. It's bigger, the image quality is excellent, and the aspect ratio is better suited for watching video. If I'm gaming, which I'll talk more about in a bit, then it depends on what types of games I play. From a portability standpoint, the 11-inch iPad Pro is noticeably smaller, so it's a little more convenient to take around with you, but it's not a huge difference. We're not talking about the Tab S8 Ultra. Now, both tablets have a premium look and feel to them. We've got machined aluminum all the way around, rounded corners, flat edges, and the bezels are about the same size on both devices. Now, in both cases, we have 4 speakers, 2 on each side. Both sound very good for a tablet, but the Tab S8 Plus speakers are a bit louder. They have a little more presence to them, and there is less distortion at full volume. Personally, I would be happy with both options here, but if the best audio quality is your #1 priority, the AKG tuned speakers with Dolby Atmos support on the Tab S8 Plus are definitely the way to go. Both tablets have a USB-C Type-C port. The one on the Tab S8 Plus is 3.2, and the one on the iPad Pro is a more powerful Thunderbolt/USB 4 port. Now, this upgraded port has faster transfer speeds, so if part of your workflow involves transferring a large number of photo or video files to and from your tablet, you'll appreciate the additional bandwidth on the iPad Pro. One significant advantage of the Tab S8 Plus is that it has a micro SD card slot, which allows you to expand the internal storage by up to 1 terabyte. You can use this space for files, and you can also use it for some apps, which makes it a much less expensive way to add storage when you compare it with expanding the internal storage on the iPad Pro. The iPad Pro uses the TrueDepth front-facing camera for biometric authentication with Face ID. On the other hand, the Tab S8 Plus uses less secure facial recognition, but it also offers an on-display fingerprint sensor, which I have found to work very well. Ultimately, the iPad Pro's Face ID is more reliable and more secure than facial recognition on the Tab S8 Plus, and at the same time, I really like having the on-display fingerprint reader, so it's really going to come down to what you value more. When we compare the camera systems, we see that Samsung definitely made some needed improvements. Both tablets have an ultra-wide 12-megapixel front-facing camera. The iPad Pro can record up to 1080p 30, and the Tab S8 Plus can go up to 4K 60. Samsung has also improved their image quality, and here's a quick sample. This is a camera and microphone test of the 11-inch M1 iPad Pro and the Tab S8 Plus. This should give you a pretty good idea of the type of image quality that you're going to get and the type of audio quality that you should expect. I'm sitting about 2 feet away from both devices, so this should be pretty much the type of quality you're going to get for a video call. Now, both tablets also have a cool feature. Apple calls it center stage and Samsung calls it auto framing. Basically, the ultra-wide camera on both tablets can identify a subject or a group of subjects and then zoom in and out to make sure that they're properly framed, even as they move around the frame. Now, both work, but so far I found that Apple's center stage has smoother transitions when it's reframing. When it comes to video calls, I prefer the placement of the camera on the Tab S8 Plus because it's in the center of the long edge, so I'm always properly framed, and it appears as if I'm actually looking at the person that I'm talking to. On the iPad Pro, the camera is on the short side, so if I have it in landscape mode and I'm watching the screen, the camera is to my left, and to the other person, it looks like I'm looking off to the side. Now, moving on to the rear-facing camera modules, the Tab S8 Plus has a 13-megapixel wide and a 6-megapixel ultra-wide camera versus 12-megapixel wide and 10-megapixel ultra-wide on the iPad Pro. Both camera modules include a flash, but the iPad Pro also has a LiDAR scanner. Now, I very rarely use the rear-facing cameras on my tablet because I always have my phone and it's much more convenient, but here's some samples to show you the quality. Now, if you're like me, you may consider expanding the functionality of both of these tablets by adding a keyboard case and then maybe a stylus. So let's take a look at the differences. The iPad Pro is compatible with the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. It pairs wirelessly, it can be stored and charged on the side of the iPad, and it costs $130. The Tab S8 Plus comes with a free S Pen, which also pairs wirelessly. It can be stored on the side or on the back of the Tab S8 Plus, but it will only charge on the back. You can assign a function to the button on the S Pen, which is similar to the Apple Pencil's double tap function, but the S Pen also has several Bluetooth functions, so you can use it to do things like take pictures, control media playback, and for a few other useful tasks. Now, both devices have fully laminated displays, so the content looks like it's right on top of the glass, and the tip of each stylus actually looks like it's touching the content that's being created. In both cases, latency is very low, but the actual writing or drawing experience is extremely different. So the Apple Pencil has a firm tip, and it's a little harsher when it hits the glass. It feels like you're writing or drawing on a single sheet of paper that's placed on a hard surface. The S Pen has a softer tip, so when it hits the glass, it gives a little, and it feels more like you're writing on a full pad of paper where the pages compress as you press down. Now, one isn't objectively better than the other for every use, and it's going to come down to which one feels better for you, but hopefully this description was helpful. Now, looking at keyboard options, the iPad Pro is compatible with Apple's smaller Magic Keyboard and also some excellent options from Logitech. The Tab S8 Plus is compatible with 2 different versions of the book cover keyboard from Samsung, and of course you can always use an external Bluetooth keyboard with both. Now let's quickly discuss performance and then move on to real life use. So the iPad Pro comes with the M1 chip. The 128, 256, and 512 gig models come with 8 gigs of RAM, and the 1 and 2 terabyte models come with 16 gigs of RAM. The Tab S8 Plus comes with the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip, and both the 128 and 256 gig models come with 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, looking at how the CPUs compare in terms of benchmarks, for single core performance, we're looking at 1711 on the iPad Pro versus 1133 on the Tab S8 Plus. And with multi-core performance, we're looking at 7298 versus 3265. So in both cases, the iPad Pro comes out ahead, but what does that actually mean when it comes to everyday use? Now, if you plan on using these tablets to surf the web, to go on social media apps, to stream video, and to work with various productivity apps, both are extremely fast. Apps open quickly, you can switch between multiple open apps, you can run a ton of tabs in your browser, and you can work with different types of documents and PDFs without a problem. And I'll talk more about the gaming performance later on in this video. Both also have some very impressive multitasking capabilities. With the iPad Pro, you can have two apps open side by side in split view, you can have slide over windows, and you can also have a pop-up window in the center. The Tab S8 Plus allows you to have three apps open at the same time, and you can resize each tile to get the configuration that works best for you. Now, both tablets can also be used as a second display for your laptop or desktop. Apple calls this feature Sidecar, and Samsung calls it Second Screen. An advantage of the Tab S8 Plus is that you can boot it in DeX mode, which gives you a desktop-like user interface with a taskbar, icons, and floating windows. You can even pair a keyboard, a mouse, and an external monitor for an extremely powerful dual display setup. If you're just looking for a tablet experience, both are excellent. But if you want one of these devices to also act as a laptop/desktop replacement, then the Tab S8 Plus is a more powerful option. Now, another consideration when choosing between these two is going to be the available apps. There are plenty of apps in both the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, so the vast majority of users are easily going to find whatever it is that they need. Now, some creative specific apps like Affinity Photo and Procreate are only available for the iPad, so if you absolutely need those two apps, go ahead and get the iPad Pro. LumaFusion, which has always been an iPad-only app, is being reworked for Android, and it's going to be a really good addition for the Tab S8 Plus once it's available. Now, a few popular note-taking apps like Notability and GoodNotes, again, they're only available for the iPad, but Samsung Notes is actually a fantastic option, and it comes included with the Tab S8 Plus. As far as operating system support, Apple has always provided excellent long-term support. And right now, I'm in my 8th year of support for my iPad Air 2. Now, Samsung did take a good step forward with the Tab S8 line of tablets, which will now get 4 years of operating system updates and 5 years of security updates. So they're still not quite on Apple's level, but it is progress. Now, looking at battery life, I'm comparing the Tab S8 Plus now to the performance that I got on the iPad Pro when it was released. And I was getting around 10 or 11 hours on my iPad Pro versus 13 to 14 hours on the Tab S8 Plus. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it the edge here. The Tab S8 Plus also accepts 45 watts of charging versus 30 watts on the iPad Pro, and that's great for when you're low on battery life, but you're also limited on time. Now, when it comes to gaming, both options are absolute powerhouses, and I've had a ton of fun playing on both. As you'd expect, basic games aren't going to be an issue, but even more demanding games run very smoothly on both devices, and as a point of reference, I have the iPad Pro with 8 GB of RAM. If you're playing PUBG on the Tab S8 Plus, you can go to HDR graphics with frame rate set to extreme, or you can set Ultra HD for graphics and Ultra for frame rate. With the iPad Pro, if you have graphics set to smooth, then you can go all the way up to 90 frames per second. You can then choose balanced and extreme, or Ultra HD for graphics and Ultra for frame rate. Now, I normally play on smooth or balanced with both devices, which gives me great gameplay and then still good battery life. Now, for how I play PUBG, I like the smaller iPad Pro because it's more comfortable for me to hold, but that's really just like a personal preference. And if I play games where the tablet is flat on a desk or if it's mounted on a case, then I like the larger display of the Tab S8 Plus. Now, when I want to play cloud-based games, I pair an Xbox controller, and then I can play any game that's available on the Xbox Game Pass app. In that context, I'm primarily using the tablet as a display, so I prefer the Tab S8 Plus, but pairing the controller and having to reconnect it is easier and more reliable on the iPad Pro. When we look at the configuration options and the pricing, I want you to pay attention to a few important differences. So I'm going to use the prices off the Apple and Samsung stores because they're standardized, but you can usually find better prices by using the links in the description. So both tablets start out with 128 GB of internal storage, The 11-inch iPad Pro sells for $799 and the Tab S8 Plus sells for $899. Remember that you do get a free S Pen with your Tab S8 Plus. Now, the iPad Pro goes all the way up to 2 terabytes of internal storage, whereas the Tab S8 Plus can only go up to 256 gigabytes. And at the same time, remember that you can add a 1 terabyte micro SD card if you need additional storage. Now you should see how the Tab S8 compares with the iPad Air 4. Hopefully this comparison was helpful. Click on my face to subscribe. You know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.